This episode of Legends, the series, is brought to you by these fine companies.
When you're young at first, I remember when I told Prudhomme this about 10 or 15 years ago. I says, hey, when we left Keith Black's in 1964, left California to go back east, I just turned 21 and he was 24. I said, who would think that we'd end up doing this for the rest of our lives, right? Okay, and that was 50 years ago.
So we took the car to Long Beach to run the first Hawaiian. Fueler and Roland was in the car, and Don was coaching him.
I took my first ride in it because I used to drive my gas dragsters, ended up crashing the car.
So he got down at the end, and he got out of the car, and of course it was minor damage, but I was really scared. And I told Roland right then and there, I said, if you want to be a driver, I don't want anything to do with this operation.
Do you ever regret that you just stayed a team owner, tuner, and never became a driver?
Well, tell you the truth, I haven't thought about it that much. But I remember way back when C.J. Hart, a lot of guys might not know who he was, but anyway, he worked with HRA forever. He was a track manager at Long Beach. I think he was the last one before Long Beach closed. Anyway, when I got my license to drive a dragster, it was at Riverside Raceway. And guess who the track manager was? C.J. Hart. So anyway, I raced a gas dragster for a couple of years, unblown, then blown. And I held the track record in the old first drag strip in Hawaii, run 850, 180 mile an hour. Then I won the opening race of the built drag strip opening in Hawaii in 1964. Then at the time I was already building this fuel dragster because the gas dragster was getting too slow. And my first run at Long Beach, I ended up crashing the car. Run off the end of the track, crashed the car. Anyway, guess who the track manager was C.J. Hart. And he took away my license. Well, this was years later. And at the time, I was young and dumb as we call it. And I didn't know you had to make a half a pass, brand new car or for a license, and I attempted to make a full pass. Couldn't find the parachute handle. When I finally did, I veered off the track. Anyway, I ran off the end of the track and crashed the car. So years later, I run into C.J. Hart, and I said, hey, C.J., I just want to tell you something. I said, you saved my life. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, if you didn't take my license away at the time, I'd probably end up killing myself in one of these cars. So I guess, no, I don't think I regret not driving, And like I said, it's been so long ago that I haven't even given much thought of it.
Now, most people, you definitely have a legend as a funny car guy. But do you think somewhere lost in the shuffle was that you were a successful top fuel tuner?
Well, I don't think so. I was one of the first, what I call the dragster guys to go to a funny car. And what happened was at the time, that's the way we made a living, or tried to make a living, running all around the country, match racing, getting paid to run. Anyway, I noticed, this is way back after running my dragster for about 4 or 5 years, I noticed that the funny cars could run more than we could, we meaning the dragster guys. So in end of 1968, I already had a dragster built for the '69 season. Right at the end there, I decided to go run a funny car. And that's when it started. So I've been running a funny car since 1969. I look at it as engine and engine, and car's a car, you know.
Do you ever think that your career might have taken a different path if you'd have stayed in Top Fuel as opposed to going over to the funny car?
I don't know. I know one thing for sure. Back then, at a certain point, it was a lot easier because we could run a lot more. Funny cars are a lot more popular than the dragsters as far as making a living. So until it got to a point where we could actually come up with major sponsors and, you know, to fund a whole program, and then that was a long way off compared to, you know, nowadays that's what you have to run. But we did it a long time. Well, I did a long time, just getting paid to running all over the country.
You've seen some fire? You ain't seen nothing yet.
You mentioned that C.J. Hart saved your life because he put you on the sidelines as opposed to in the cockpit. Did you ever fear one of your drivers ever getting hurt really badly?
Oh yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah. At the time, you know, when you're that young, you never even think about it. You know, you know, we just wanted to go racing. Never thought about what would happen, and you know. But along the way, yes, I did. And like I told people before, I don't know how I would feel if somebody got, you know, maimed or seriously hurt in one of my cars. And knock on wood, here I am, 50 years later, still running these cars, and nothing seriously happened to any of my drivers or people that I was associated with.
It's not that Mike Dunn didn't try his best to get hurt in your car.
Jesus, I mean, it's just one of them deals where every time you turn around, something happened, and I don't know, you know, and you surely can't blame Mike Dunn, you know. I mean, it's just things happen. I guess when you race, things happen, and they're going to happen. And thankfully, most of the good guys, or I don't know why that is, most of them don't really get killed before the end of their career.
Hey, how about a nice Hawaiian punch?
Sure.
You had a reputation for being kind of tough on your drivers. Why were you tough on your drivers?
Well, remember one thing, okay? In those days, we were all young, very young, okay? And I guess not everybody's the same, which we know. And I guess I got spoiled. I tell people I got spoiled at an early age in the fact that we won a lot of races early, you know. And when you get spoiled like that, when you get beat, it's not easy to take. And all these different people, everybody got a different way of showing their competitiveness, okay? And maybe some of them weren't as competitive as I was, and some of them probably were, and maybe even more so than I was, but never showed it. And that's where at different times a lot of the difference came. And then some of the drivers, of course, they ran their own cars prior to come driving for me, and you know, try to tell me how to run the car. Well, you know, like I say, I was young, and you know, I lived by the term that the boss is always right. So.
So I won't ask you to put anybody on the spot and say who was your worst driver, but who was your best natural driver that you had? This is your time to give the greatest accolades to any one of them.
Well, to me there were two of them, okay? And one was Don Prudhomme, and the other one was Ron Capps, okay? And there was a long span in between, and there were some other pretty good ones too. Mike Snively, Larry Reyes, that drove my funny car, But like I tell guys, drag racing is more car than driver, right? Okay. I tell a lot of these people to this day, especially in the earlier days when we could come up with different things. Nowadays it's pretty tough because the cars are like bracket cars. I mean, because you can't do a lot of things and come up with different things to do because of the rules. But in those days, we could be a tenth or half a tenth ahead of everybody, And a lot of times my cars were. And I tell drivers to this day, especially in the nostalgia class that I'm running now, I'm going to save their butt a lot more times than they can save mine, but by the car being fast and quick. But then again, at different times, I need my butt saved too.
Now, kind of not going on the being tough on the drivers thing, and I did a little research, and I only found that one driver ever drove for you twice.
Yeah, that was Gordy Bonin. We got along really good, really well, and I don't even remember if I got rid of him or he quit. And I think he quit, and because he wanted to stay closer to home, which was Canada. Okay, and then when I needed somebody else, way back when, years and years later, Gordy was a good driver, easy to get along with. Plus that he was good at PR, and at the time, the second time when I hired him, rehired him, I should say, doing PR was starting to be a big thing, which today is really a big thing.
You must have really liked him to even open up your house and let him live with you. How scary was that?
Well, remember, we were both young, okay? The first time he lived with me, yes. And then, in fact, when we come back off tour, at the time, we couldn't afford to pay somebody full time like you do today, like they do today. And so he got a job in Los Angeles, lived at my house, and went and worked in the wintertime until we started match racing again, in those days, most of them got paid by a percentage of what the car made,
Who follows drag racing, even remotely, knows that a funny car like this one is not as fast as a top fuel dragster. They are the kings of the quarter mile. Well, 99% of the time, that's true. There's a big exception here at the U.S. Nationals and the talk of the pits. That's the funny car driven by Jim White. Yesterday, the final round of the Big Bud Shootout, Jim White won $50,000 over John Forrest, a great elapsed time of 5:16. The speed, 288 miles per hour. The second time this week in the car ran 288.
Big Show passed a lot of people by, a lot of the legends. Or it just kind of didn't, I wouldn't say passed them by, but it just wasn't the way to make it today. Did you leave the Big Show on your own terms, or do you feel like you got pushed out?
Well, I don't think I got pushed out, okay. I owned all my own teams since 1965. Till my Hawaiian Punch deal ended in 1991. But then in 1993, I had a deal for half the season that was supposed to go for 3 years, but it was based more on politicians and very political, and that's why that deal ended. At that time, I knew that unless you had a major sponsor and the funds, very hard to be competitive, and I feel that all my career I was competitive right up to the end. as far as winning races and doing good. And so at that time, I decided to kind of hang it up. In the meantime, different people called me to run their teams. You know, Prudhomme, I ran Prudhomme's for 3 or 4 years. I ran for Chuck Etchels and Jim Epler, and ran theirs. And but then again, if I can't be competitive like I was, I guess, and because I got spoiled at an early age, so probably why I was so competitive so all these years. And to this day, I still run nostalgia cars for different people. And if I can't be competitive or don't have, for whatever reason, or have the funds or whatever to be competitive, then that's when I guess I'll hang it up or not do it anymore.
How tough was it for you to be on the other side of that fence as an employee as opposed to the big cheese?
Well, it was hard at different times, but you know, I was on the other side. I could relate a lot to some of the decisions that my boss or the owners made. But most of the time, when I came in there, when they hired me, the understanding was that if I was going to run the team, then I had to have the liberty and the funding or whatever to do the job. And most of the time I did that. Now on these nostalgia cars, it's a lot different because a lot of these nostalgia guys, I don't think, a lot of them don't have the experience or never experienced being, they say they're competitive, they say they want to win, but a lot of them don't have a clue as far as what it takes to win, you know. And I don't know how to explain that, but I've been on both sides, and I can see and watched in all these years. So, but anyway, no, it hasn't been all that tough.
At 70 years old, you don't act like a 70-year-old.
I hope not.
What's the key to your longevity?
Well, I can't say it's eating right. I really don't know. Maybe my ethnic background, I guess. I don't know. It's like Prudhomme told me a couple of times already. He says, why do you want to keep doing this, getting all stressed out? And like I told him, nobody stresses me out. I put my own stress on myself only because the competitive person that I am. And he said, well, you know, one of these days I'm going to hear that you had a heart attack and died on the starting line. I said, well, if that happens, you can tell him one thing. He said, I was doing something I love to do.
Drag racing's always been that one sport where that really didn't matter. Why do you think that is?
I really don't know. I was born and raised in Hawaii, and they were, you know, racing wasn't real big there. You know, started on the street like any other kids, and then went from there. But they didn't have very big drag strips and a lot of drag strips, and you know, like we raced, lucky to race once a month there. You know. But the era, I guess, that I was brought up in, or the era that at that time, racing was drag racing was big. You know, there was just, you know, we didn't have a lot of concerts and cell phones and computers and things that to keep us busy, I guess. And somebody asked me if I surfed. I said, well, in Hawaii, you either surf or race, and you know what I did.
And Roland, what are you doing under here?
I just kind of get my motor cool for the next round.
What kind of operation do you go through between each round on one of these cars?
Well, we don't have very many pistons, so we don't have to do a major overhaul, what we call a major overhaul on them. But we adjust the valves, we torque the heads, put fuel, water, and oil in them, and take it back to the starting line and hope it runs better.
Why don't you hurt many parts? Some racers go out and they burn up everything every run, but you seem to have your combination together and have for quite some time.
Well, we've been working on it a long time, for the last 5 years, and we kind of had to bite our lip a little bit at times and not run as good as we thought we could or should and get beat. And but it all worked out for the best, working on it that way and not hurt.
We don't have any hobbies. Well, I didn't have any hobbies. Never had time to. From a very young age, and remember when I came from Hawaii, I was like 17 years old, and I went to work for a company called Dragmaster Company that built dragsters, and at the time, you could build a bare chassis car. They build you a bare chassis car all the way to a running car. And I worked there and raced, and at first went back and forth from the mainland here to Hawaii. Didn't know if I could even live here or what I was really going to do. And then when I started, got my top fuel car, and Prudhomme drove it and went on and won the Winter Nationals in 1965. And I guess at that time, I didn't sit down and say, well, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. But I figured, well, what was the next step? And I talked Prudhomme into going back east and racing with the big guys. And we booked the car, got paid to do it, and off we went. And been doing it all my life. So I don't know. I still enjoy doing it. What do? I travel. My girlfriend Susie and I, we travel quite a bit. Watching the grandkids grow up, being with I got 2 young granddaughters, 11 and 8, and watching them grow up. I got an older grandson that's 21, graduating from college this year, and took care of him and watched him. And I guess you might say I'm a simple guy because I'm still doing something I love to do, and I'll probably end up dying doing it. So I just going along.
When you look back on your career, what are you most proud of?
I guess being able, like I tell people, for me to be able to do something that people only dream about doing, as a kid, and be able to do it all our lives, and support our family, and do something you really like. I told my kids way back when, I said, I don't know what you want to do, but whatever it is, try and do something that you think that you'd really like to do. Because I don't care what it is, there's always good times and hard times, And it just seems like it's a lot easier to get through the hard times when it's something that you really, really love to do. A lot of guys don't know this, but both my parents were very well educated. Okay, my father, who died at 62 years old, he had a master's degree from Harvard University, in bachelor's degree in business in 1932, and my mom, who died was 2005. She died at 93. She even had a college degree. She graduated from the University of Hawaii. And I myself didn't have much education. I tell everybody I went to the school of hard knocks, but I guess I had a dream, or I had and something I liked to do, which I guess was racing cars, and I was fortunate enough or was able to do whatever it took to do that all my life. So I guess you might say I lived my dream.